Morgana was the kind of mother who could make you feel small with just a look. Everyone in the village feared her, not because she was loud or violent, but because of her sharp mind and cunning ways. She knew how to twist people's words, how to make them feel guilty for things they hadn't done. And worst of all, her cruelty was subtle, the kind that left no marks but weighed heavily on the soul. Her daughter, Ella, felt the brunt of it every day. While Morgana put on the appearance of a caring mother in front of others, behind closed doors, it was different. She would mock Ella for the smallest things, if her dress wasn't perfectly clean, or if her chores weren't done fast enough. "You'll never be good at anything," she'd say with a cold smile, watching as Ella struggled to fight back tears. Ella tried to be strong. She would wake up early to finish all the tasks Morgana gave her, hoping that maybe today would be different. But it never was. Morgana always found a way to put her down. Sometimes, she would invite the neighbors over and talk about how Ella was too lazy, too foolish, too clumsy, planting seeds of doubt in their minds so they'd see Ella the same way she did. When Ella did cry, Morgana would roll her eyes and say, "Crying won't make you any stronger. No one cares about your tears." One day, after a particularly harsh scolding, Ella ran outside, tears blurring her vision as she stumbled toward the edge of the woods. She found a quiet spot under an old oak tree, where no one could hear her cry. She sat there, knees to her chest, trying to make herself as small as possible, wishing for the pain to go away. As she cried, the sky began to change. A soft wind rustled through the trees, and the air seemed to hum with energy. Then, without warning, the ground beneath her feet started to glow. Tiny sparkles of light floated up from the earth, surrounding Ella in a gentle, warm embrace. She gasped, wiping her tears as the glowing lights gathered around her, filling her with a sense of calm she had never felt before. The wind seemed to whisper to her, "You are not weak, Ella. You are worthy of love." In that moment, something inside her shifted. The weight of Morgana's cruelty lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a deep strength. The magic of the land had chosen her, and it was telling her that she was enough, just as she was. The days that followed were different. Morgana, as usual, tried to find ways to break her daughter's spirit, but something strange kept happening. One morning, Morgana went to wake Ella early for her chores, but as soon as she stepped out of bed, her foot slipped, and she fell hard onto the floor. Confused and angry, she limped to the kitchen, only to find her breakfast completely burned, the fire in the hearth far too hot. Morgana tried to brush it off, but the strange occurrences didn't stop. When she went to the market, her basket tore open, spilling everything onto the dirt. At dinner, her spoon slipped from her hand, clattering loudly on the floor every time she tried to take a bite. Her luck, it seemed, had turned sour. Ella, on the other hand, was thriving. The more Morgana's bad luck worsened, the stronger Ella became. She no longer feared her mother's sharp words or her cruel remarks. When Morgana would insult her, Ella would simply smile, knowing the truth now, that her mother's words had no power over her anymore. Morgana's frustration grew. Every time she tried to make things difficult for Ella, something would go wrong for her instead. Once, she tried to scold Ella for not finishing her chores quickly enough, but as she opened her mouth, her voice cracked, and she couldn't speak. Another time, she prepared to send Ella out in the rain to fetch firewood, but as soon as she reached for the door, the handle came off in her hand. The villagers began to notice that Morgana's once perfect control was slipping. People whispered about her misfortunes, how everything she touched seemed to go wrong. And while Morgana's luck fell apart, Ella blossomed. She became more confident, more joyful, and for the first time, she was able to see herself as someone worthy of happiness. Morgana, who had once held the entire village in her grip, was now just a shadow of her former self. Her schemes backfired, her clever words faltered, and even the neighbors she once manipulated began to avoid her. Every day brought new frustrations. Her clothes tore easily, her food spoiled faster, and her once pristine home seemed to rebel against her. But for Ella, life was brighter. She no longer sought her mother's approval or feared her judgment. The magic that had surrounded her that day in the woods had given her something her mother never could, the belief that she mattered. And Morgana, for all her cunning, was left with nothing but her own misfortune, a reminder that no matter how much she had tried to control others, she could never escape the consequences of her own cruelty.